Good morning, everyone. This week we're going to talk about mindfulness. And mindfulness is basically using your mind to overcome a situation. It's the whole principle of mind over matter. Some of the key aspects of mindfulness is to think about your situation. Say, for example, you're starting to have a panic attack. Well, even though it might be hard at the time, you can think about where am I? Am I in a safe place? Am I somewhere that I'm comfortable? Is there something specific that's triggering this, that's causing this reaction? And that's just using your mind to think about it and kind of get through that situation. But we're going to look at the DBT handbook, and the first thing it goes over is the wise mind. So your wise mind is a balance between being overly logical and overly emotional. It's kind of that balance that you need to be at. So the emotional mind is going to be the one that's completely powered by how you're feeling. The way the situation's making you feel. You're not using your head at all. You're just reacting out of emotion. And the logical mind is sort of the tactical part. It's like, this makes sense for this reason, but when you're only using a logical mind, then you're not taking into consideration how you feel about the situation, how it's affecting you, how the decision for whatever it might be will affect you in the future. And so what the wise mind is a balance between the two, and says, okay, this is how I feel about the situation, and this is logically what we should do about it. So you're going to make the best decision for that situation based on not only how it makes you feel, but about whether or not it makes sense. So it's kind of that perfect little balance. Some of the core mindfulness skills are to observe. So observe yourself. Ask yourself what you're feeling, how you feel it, what it means to you, things like that. Just kind of look inside yourself and pay attention to yourself. That's so important. I can't even stress that enough. You have to pay attention to what's going on with you. Learn to describe the feeling to yourself. Say, okay, sometimes it can be hard to say this is exactly what I'm feeling, because sometimes we don't really know. And that's very common. So one thing I like to do is I have a jar, and the jar is specifically for words that describe a way I'm feeling, or words or emotions that I want to throw away. So when I'm in a bad place and I just need to just let it go, I'll write it on a little piece of paper, just the word, the feeling, however I can describe it, and I'll throw it away into that jar. And that's kind of a visual letting it out and letting it go. And that's something that has worked out really well for me. But on days when I can't describe what I'm going through, or I can't describe what I'm feeling, or I don't even know exactly what it is that I'm feeling, I'll take all the words out of the jar and I'll just look through them, and I'll find things that are similar to what I'm feeling, things that are kind of making sense, and sometimes I'll even make a sentence out of it. And so by describing that feeling to myself, then I'm learning to become more aware of that feeling and what that means to me. So that's a big thing with being mindful, is learning to describe to yourself what the situation is so that you can understand it on a more personal level. Another thing with mindfulness is to learn to participate. It's easy to get lost in thought, to drift away, dissociate, there's a lot of things that can happen with that. And so by participating, you're staying mentally active in the situation. You can it helps you to stay focused. It helps you to just stay present in the moment. And so that's a big thing. You'll want to take a non-judgmental stance, which means don't judge yourself. Don't judge things for other people. Learn to say to yourself, and when you're thinking about others, that works for them, that's fine. not a big deal. And then also with yourself, don't tell yourself that it's wrong. Don't tell yourself that it's bad. Don't judge yourself. Just say, okay, this is how I'm feeling right now. This is the way I'm reacting to it. It happens. There's nothing wrong with it. But if it is something that you need to work on, be honest with yourself about that. Yeah, I need to work on it, but never judge yourself. Never put yourself down. That's a dangerous habit to get into. It can be really bad for you. It also says, unglue your opinions from the facts, from the who, what, when, and where. So when you're taking a non-judgmental stance on something, let go of your opinions. Just look at the situation, look at the facts about it, and take it from there. Accept each moment as it is. Every event is just like a blanket that's just spread out on the lawn, accepts both the rain and the sun. Each leaf that falls on it is what it says. So just accept the world for what it is. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge the good things, the great things, the bad things, the awful things. Acknowledge that they're there. Don't judge them for being good or bad. They're moments, they're experiences. Don't judge them. And then if you do start to find yourself judging, just say, I understand that I'm doing this. I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna let it go. But don't be hard on yourself if you do happen to start judging a situation. It happens to everyone. I do it all the time. It's a habit. It's human nature. But when you're working through your recovery, you're gonna want to try really hard to take that non-judgmental stance. Try to focus on what you're doing at that time. So say, for example, if you're eating, just eat. If you're walking, just walk. If you're working, just work. When you're staying focused on the situation at hand or the task at hand, that's going to help keep you present. That's going to help keep the anxiety down, the stress down. It's going to help you stay focused. And that's a big thing about being mindful, is to stay present. A lot of us do have a habit of dissociating. I've done it a lot. And it's something that's really hard to overcome. And so by practicing doing one thing at a time and focusing on that one thing, you'll start to learn to prevent that from happening. And sometimes you have no control over it, and that's fine. It happens. But it will help to reduce that and then help you work through it. So what you want to do throughout these lessons is to focus on what works for you. So one thing about being mindful that I think is really helpful is if I am having a panic attack or if I'm in an unusually stressful situation, then I'll just sit there and just talk myself up in my mind, just over and over. I'll just sit there and think, everything's fine. I'm safe where I'm at. I'm comfortable. It's not too hot in here. It's not too cold in here. I like the color of the paint on the walls. Just sit there and think to yourself, talk yourself up, remind yourself that you are in a good situation. And that's a big thing about being mindful. Use your mind to overcome. So that's kind of the basics of mindfulness. What I would like to do, and I'm going to see if I can figure out how to do that, but I would like to upload some of the worksheets that I found on mindfulness to the Facebook group, so they will be available. And then, we'll see what next week brings.